allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Who's doing the roll call? Who's the?
I'll do it.
Okay. Roll call, please, Phil.
Lehman, here. Underwood, here. Gilman, here. Corn,
Here.
Castle.
Here. Okay, we don't have any blue sheets, so the next item is approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Corn, second by Commissioner.
Could I ask for an addition?
Sure.
I'd like to add signals in as Roman numeral 5.
Under 6A,
Yes.
signals. Okay. The Commissioner.
I will make an amended motion.
All right, so we have an amended agenda to add under 6A, Roman numeral 5 signals. We have a motion, second, if Commissioner Underwood agrees, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes as amended. Does any member of the board have any conflict of interest with any item on the agenda? Being none. Public comment. Does any member of the public wishes to make a comment at this time? All right. Move on to action items. This 6A, existing infrastructure, and we have 5 items: road network, gravel road, SADs, cost share, and signals. So Dan, do you want to lead off the discussion?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'd like to start off with Larry put a really nice presentation together for us. And we're actually gonna show everybody kind of the beginning here of Transmat. On this stage, we want to show everybody what's like with Transmat. We have a rough first, and our goal is to get to that 3 to 5 year plan. We have a first rough year 1 put together, so I want to show you that as well. And then after that, we'll hopefully open it up. We can discuss roles and funding and, you know, different things like that. And I think a lot is going to come out of the Transmat and show our shortfalls. So I think we're a lot of time.
Sounds good.
So what we're going to do is we're just going to walk through a little bit of our assets. This is going to focus solely on asphalt or paved, our paved road network. We did have Transmat map come through. They did create this report. That's the big packet that you see on your desk. As I go through this, we'll start flipping through the pages. So I'll kind of guide you through that a little bit. But here's some of our road network for our asphalt roads, 260 miles of primary. Well, actually, this is encompassing all of our roads in our Grand Traverse County. But I just wanted to kind of give you a snapshot of the assets we own. The next slide is just showing what we use in our asset management plan, what we use the GIS and CityWorks for. That's all encompassing kind of a centralized database that we can put lots of data into, you know, traffic counts, condition assessments, lengths of roads, types of roads. So these are a few tools that we use in the realm of asset management. The next one is just a definition of of asset management. You know, the idea here is to really extend the service life of our assets through operation, maintenance, and rehabilitation. The core components of our asset management plan: asset inventory, level of service, critical assets, revenue structure, capital improvement project plan. And right now, we're really deep into the asset inventory part of that, which is where we find out what we own, where it is, what condition it's in, what its remaining useful life is, and what the value of that asset is. And this is where, you know, we had to figure out a way to gather this data. In the past, we used Phaser, which is our pavement rating system. And this is what's used across the states, pavement surface evaluation rating. This, this is a 1 through 10 scale. And it gives you a good, fair, poor condition assessment of the roads. And we've done that in-house alongside of MDOT and then Networks Northwest for the past few years to try to get our ratings set or our conditions collected. Transmap uses something that's called pavement condition index. So this is a 1 through 100. Gives us a little bit more detail, and it helps us get a little more specific on how we're going to extend the service life of each road through treatments. The PCI right next to Pacer, it's very, very close. There's a few little nuances in there, but it's very, very similar if you just kind of do a 10, 20, 30 scale with the ratings. Again, remaining service life, that curve right there is a deterioration curve. And you can see that length is nice and rounded, and then at one point it just kind of dives. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a deterioration curve that looks a little bit more jagged. So as the curve goes down, next slide. The curve goes down, we do a little treatment and we pop it back up a little bit. And then it's starting to deteriorate a little bit, and then we do another treatment, and then it goes back up and it goes back down. So we're just trying to extend it so we can get that full 25 years of life out of that road. So how do we know what we have and what our current system looks like? That's where Transmap came. They drove every road that we have. They did drive gravels too, but we did the ratings on our gravels. But for asphalt and paved roads, we use Transmap. They used a truck, had sensors on it, had cameras on it, 360 camera. They had a bar on the front of it, and that bar gets ride quality and gets the imperfections in the road. And as you can see next to the truck there is a snapshot or a small picture of the red representing poor or bad road, and then the green and the yellow representing good green road. The big dots there are actual picture locations. So it's like Google. If you click on it, you can pan around and you can look and you can zoom in. And that is something that I use quite a bit. It was driven last September, and it's something that you can see what it looked like in September compared to now. They did drive like I said, here's a picture kind of our whole network. And then you can see here, this is over on Hammond and Town Line. The bad part is obviously the part that's from Town Line to 3 Mile, 4 Mile. And then the other way is the 3 Mile there. So you can see the gray is good and the red is bad. So you can see where our construction stopped or our new pavement stopped right there. The Transmap truck also gets this is called our cracks. So it can really dive in to see where our cracks are. Like this location right here, this is something that, my crew can go out and we can go find this bad area and we can figure out a way to maybe do some skip patching here or something like that. So we can get rid of that bad spot in there so it doesn't continue to grow. And next picture is just a picture of what that camera shot looks like. And like I said, it's a 360 camera, so it turns around. This is a deterioration curve again. It's a lot cheaper to do those treatments early in the life of a road. It's much more expensive when we get into the later life or the later years of that road's life. It gets much more expensive because you have to get to the sub base and there's much more to do, and it deteriorates extremely fast. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get in there quick. Let's keep our good roads good so they extend longer. The next picture here is just understanding pavement condition and what each individual road type is. So if you look at that bar chart there, the very top one is local road, the middle one is a collector road, and then the top road is an arterial, which an arterial carries much more traffic than say a local. So you can see that deterioration curve's a little flatter than the other. So traffic is a huge component to the deterioration of a road.
Larry, just for everyone's benefit, what's a collector road?
So a collector would be something more like, a heavier local or maybe even a light primary. When you get into like arterials, you're kind of thinking South Airport and up.
Residential are feeding into it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's like residential areas are feeding into it.
Okay.
It collects them.
So on this road, this is kind of the industry standard for PCI condition levels. Once we can define where these individual PCI ratings are, we can start to decide, okay, what type of rehabilitation or what type of treatment will we do? So when we find these types of roads, we know that we have this type of rehabilitation to do on those roads. When you go to the next part there, this will show us sort of what that cost is for those treatment types. And then also it will give you the expected result after we do the treatment of that road. So right now I'm kind of getting into the Transmap report. The first part of your Transmap report is, and it's pavement management report, I should say it that way, is the first part is different scenarios than the addendum. The second part, we changed up some scenarios in there so we could start to dial in a little deeper on each individual scenario. Because what we did was we looked at it when they came in, we wanted that report to say, okay, what is the snapshot of all of our roads right now? So they did 671 miles of paved road. They found out there was 1.05 billion replacement costs, and that's 1.56 million per center line mile. And that is a fix-all at a fix-all rate. If you could fix everything, that's what it would cost us, 220 million. Fix everything. The scenarios we used in this first report was a fix-all, a do nothing, and then an annual budget of 6.5 million per year, and then a 7 million a year. We were trying to emulate what we get in our millage. And so obviously this between the 6 and the 7 didn't really show much because it's such a small amount of money when we're doing massive. So talking about all of our roads, so this includes primary and local. So when you look at this entire picture here, you can see that our weighted average PCI for our primary roads is 84. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's not horrible for our primary roads. If you think of that, it's 1 to 100 before up in the 84 for the primary roads. So it's looking pretty good. When we get to the local world, and the local included subdivisions. So that is when we did our addendum, we broke it out because we couldn't really see and tell in this snapshot here, but the locals came out to be around a 53. So the weighted average would be around a 65 as a whole. So again, here's that full fix it all type snapshot. There's your square yards and there's your cost per category. So per treatment. And when we get into the preventative world, it costs this. And when we get into the reconstruction world, it costs this. You can even see in that snapshot how much less preventative is rather than reconstruction. And then when we look at the do nothing, we do absolutely nothing and we don't spend another dime on it for new construction or treatments. our 64 in 4 years will go down to a 55. So we can watch this trend happen. This is all our roads with a $6.5 million budget. And we can watch that 64 PCI rating go down to a 60.
This is what our current budget is, and what we're able to do, accomplish currently.
Right. So we're not that at this snapshot, not going to keep up.
Or, you know, with our current funding, we're slowly gonna lose our roads.
Right.
Keep going down on our overall PCI score.
So this one is a budget to maintain a 65. It would take $13.7 million per year to just maintain that 65. The next group here, and this is just real. This is just asphalt roads, right? Then you can take a look at these three trends that, this is kind of the three trends all together. You can see that if we're spending more money, that 65 stays up. If we don't do anything, that 65 dies down. So Transmap with this report gave us a work plan, $6.5 million annual work plan. Now, when we look at the work plan, it's really nice and great, but it's not realistic. Some of the spots that they picked were very small little segments. We don't go and fix, a quarter mile of road. Really, we do them in miles, and it's a little longer. So it's taking engineering and us to kind of go through this, but pick the road extents that we need. So we're still using the same, same cost per foot and per square yard, but we are deciding where that extent
We're taking
is.
this data and trying to get the most bang for our buck, knowing that, the companies aren't coming in and do a quarter mile section. We need to look at a mile section.
Right. So that's where this report, it's a good report, and we're using it as a guide, but we needed to get a little bit more detailed in that decision-making process. So we talked to Transmat and we had to do an addendum to their report. We wanted to see different scenarios. We wanted to see different families. So we wanted to see the primary network by itself. What's that going to take? Because that's how we break up our money, and that's how we pay for primary roads. Locals are a match. So we also put in the local throughs. At that time when we did this addendum, local throughs were a thing, or were the idea behind a local through was basically a local road that's acting like a primary road. So Lafreniere, that is actually a local road. Zimmerman, yes, sir, local road. Those are roads that are really acting primary. So that was the idea behind the local.
Would you say Frankie Road is in that same category?
Frankie Road, I believe it is, yes. Yeah. Typically, the characteristics of a local through is it touches two primary roads and people use it to cut, or it's a very heavily used road.
The biggest thing I want to keep in mind when we talk about local through roads, it's a terminology that we coined. That's the Grand Traverse County Road Commission's thing. When you look at like an engineering or like new PCI, but it's not acknowledged on any sort of road platform. So
It's the funding separate.
When this is over, I'd like to discuss more of how we would like to look at something that, we kind of coined the phrase.
Right.
So those are, we also broke out local roads by themselves without subdivision roads. So we wanted to see that because subdivision roads are SADs. And then we did, the local roads were without subs. So on this one, it's just kind of showing the annual budget. We're really trying to look for what's realistic, and that's about a $7 million budget with the millage. Without the millage, we don't have that kind of funding. So this is all asphalt roads again, treatment ranges, and this is kind of just going through that again, just kind of refresher for square yard costs and the category for things.
Larry, can you go back that previous slide? I just want to make sure that not the one before this one. So there are 3 bullet points there with different, is that the current funding to maintain a PACER rating of PCI of 65, or is that
That's what it will take.
what it will take
That's what it will take.
for each of those divided local roads, sub-local, through roads, local and sub, okay,
Yes.
Almost double what our current funding is.
okay,
We've identified 2 different ways of how to find that shortfall.
okay.
The bottom one is a scenario that I wanted them to do as well. So that is a local through road to 84, like to bring our local network up to where our primaries are right now. What would it take? And that is an annual budget of 13.4 million per year.
For that specific.
For local through.
Just for local throughs. And that's 120 miles. So, and then the other thing would be the locals to bring all the locals to a 70. It would take an annual budget of $10.55 million annually.
And that local road is not the entire. That's just the paved asphalt roads.
Yeah. Asphalt
And how
roads
many miles are we talking about there? Like,
and no subs.
No subs, no gravels.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know, you know,
You can pull it up, Sal, if you want.
we can get that.
okay. I just want to be clear that when we use the term local roads, we're talking about a subset of local roads. That doesn't include
Correct.
subdivision roads, that doesn't include gravel, that includes specifically paved asphalt.
Correct. Correct. So when we broke this out, you can see our primary still at that 84, looking good there. Our local throughs are averaging a PCI of 53. Our locals are around that 50 area, again, no stubs and all pavement. And then our subdivisions are at a 54. And I don't know if that's just because we got new ones coming in or what, but I thought that was kind of high because we do have some pretty dense.
Just out of curiosity, was there ever a theoretical scenario examined where tomorrow all the roads are green? And then we go through a preservation process like every 3 years we give a coat and make the road happy again for another 3 years. That 75 cents a square yard number, has that been applied? Have you at all done that? I mean, just to see if, is it futile once we get into that point?
Oh, I see. So,
We had the 221 million to get everything to 100%. What would it cost?
Right. What would it cost each year just to preserve everything in that way?
no, I have. I've
Just a hypothetical.
Yeah.
So, in the number of center line miles, for each of those families of roads, we are talking about, when you're talking about 97.61 miles of local through, that's different than the 120 because the 97.61 local through is only the paved roads.
paved roads, yeah.
And then is that the number for the local roads paved 116.7 miles? Is that the,
116.7 would be, yes, paved.
so that is that what answer to the previous question I had, that would be it.
That would be it, right?
Okay.
Okay, yes, there you go. Perfect. The next one here, this is a kind of a snapshot of our primary roads right here. And again, it's that primary road of doing nothing. So we're watching that line go directly down. That deferred maintenance cost is going up every year. And then, so that PACER's down to a 75 in 4 years. The next one is our primary asphalt roads. You had about a $6 million budget to maintain an 84. So it's not even really, I mean, it's 6 million, but you can see that it's still dropping. And that would be everything. just to maintain that 84. And then that next one is just another work plan. It's a little different work plan, but very, very similar. Because we changed the budget. And then we also put it as a primary and local road. Primary and local road plan. So we added them both together. But we can, the engineering and we are working through that to kind of see which category we can get. Obviously, we're really focused on the primary network right now, just trying to keep them good. If there are good local roads, then we're trying to spend a little time there too, to make sure that the local roads stay good. But so where you see that little tab in your big packet there, that's where that second addendum starts.
I have a question on Brackett Road here, just as an example. So you've got portions of the road that are rated 5.46. And then you have portions of that road rated at 89.66. And if you look over, tell me what FDR is. I know it's not Roseville.
We're rolled up for information.
Right, like that means we're redoing the road, right?
Everything is.
So when you look at that and you look at the part that's 89.66, meaning at some point that road's been redone or it's in decent shape, that section.
Yep.
How come that's so much more money to redo than the parts of the road that are in such horrible shape?
So is that a full reconstruct, or are you saying?
Well, if you look at the end, the last column, recommended treatment.
Say the debates that they're talking about?
Yeah, the expensive or the high ranking one, 89.66.
Okay,
So they're talking about $464,000 for that section that's in good shape, 89, that's good.
Mhm.
But then when you look at a section that's at like a 5, it's not as much. So I just wondered, how can we have an idea of how big of a section that we're looking at? I'm assuming the answer is distance.
that is distance.
Right.
And that's the problem.
But how can we tell that on here?
So this is where we're gonna get into the GIS world.
Okay.
This is what's gonna help us understand, because what's happened they have done their job and they're picking little segments and they're picking larger
Mhm.
segments and whatnot. So what we're doing now is we're creating our own plan, utilizing this, but we're extending.
Yeah, it's like you're missing a distance column on the spreadsheet. But if you were to add all of those numbers together, that's an idea of what it would be to redo Brackett Road,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Correct.
I was focused on Frankie. That's just not up
Yeah.
here. It's a much shorter road distance, so it gives you a little bit better idea of what it would cost
Yes.
to completely redo Frankie Road. And the answer is less than $1 million on this, but I don't understand how to quantify that.
So there's
Yeah.
another piece to the puzzle.
That's what I figured.
So we're gonna look at what Rachel has built for us, which is awesome. It's a great tool. But we also have other things like Town Line has a culvert that we need to replace. This is only surface. That's all it is. So if there's a culvert underneath it, if there's
Okay.
anything like that, that's more cost. Like Town Line, that's where
Okay.
some of that cost is, and that is not quantified.
If there's a bad base or something like that, we have to dig out and replace. It's gonna be
Okay.
a cost of that.
And what we're trying to do with this is trying to get us in that, letting the data drive a little bit and trying to get us to those locations, and then we start doing.
Okay, I think.
So if you want to pull that, so the next page is just a snapshot of some of the things that Rachel had put together for us, and you can pull up your project if you want. The other part of the puzzle is, you got two roads that are both, let's say they're both 50s, and you're kind of like, these are exactly 1 mile and they're both 50s. What do we do? Well, in their primary roads, well, one might have, 4,000 cars on it, and the other might have 200,000 cars on it. So we're utilizing all the data that's around us.
Right, so one of your layers of data is traffic count.
Is traffic.
Yeah.
That's right. Once we start dialing that in, there'll be other things like well, traffic counts really, it's the main thing that helps us decide between, let's say, two roads.
That's something obviously we talk about with this, through locals, what do we actually say if we're gonna start to put more money into these through locals that they're a primary? What are the parameters of that? And I think car counts is the big one people look at. Of doing that, but which ones come first, or which ones, want to spend, or a lot of people are coming to us, saying like, hey, this is should be a through local. We need to be able to say like, it's a hard number,
So have a threshold, we call it a high count local.
yeah, like 2,000 cars a day or over, so something along those lines.
Do we have a lot of dead end roads? Cause that throws you off on traffic counts if you're using that as a parameter. We just don't really have a lot though.
Right.
I'm thinking of like Zimmerman, right? There's a dead end there. Jefferson. Doesn't that have a dead end? Or does that swing around? I thought one of those is
Dead end.
Yeah.
So as you went through this, and I don't have a slide for it, but if you go through this, it's really to maintain, even to maintain our 84, you notice that it was $6 million for all of our primary roads. And that is, like I said, excluding other parameters like culverts and things like that. And to increase our PCI is something that is going to be very difficult with the current load we have right now. I'm not saying you change anything or anything like that. I'm just telling you the story, and showing you how that works.
I can't remember what that slide said, but what were the ratings for different PCIs? Like what was fair? What number is fair, good, very good?
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what it said.
You mean to show the routine maintenance or to show that what?
Yeah, like for example, the subdivision roads, I think you said the PCI is 53. Well, where does it
okay.
rate? Is it considered fair? Is it poor? Is it?
Or
And when we say like our weighted average for all was 64, where does that? Is that considered fair? Is that considered good?
Oh, I see what you're saying for
Yeah.
PCI.
Yeah, for PCIs, yes.
Yeah. So we are in well, it says critical, but it's one of those things that as you do it as a whole, it's a little harder to kind of
So,
take in. We're, you know what I'm saying? Like as a whole, because we have really, really good ones and then we have some really, really bad ones.
right, so, okay, yeah, so I mean, anything up to between 41 and 55, we are, well, 53 would be somewhere closer between poor and a fair, right? I
Right,
mean, it's
right.
towards the high end and the low end of one.
And that's really where our local network resides.
Yeah. And of course, our primaries are almost in the good range, which is the top range.
They're good, but the whole idea is to really keep the good ones good, because once they go, that deterioration curve, once they go really
We almost
fast.
have to spend our entire budget to keep them.
Right.
Otherwise, they're gonna start to fall down to the setback free, and then obviously go out of the.
So when you start falling below 25, definitely below 10,
We don't have a road.
is there a mechanism where it makes sense to pulverize and go back to gravel?
There's, I think Kalamazoo's been starting to do something like that. I know
Yeah, one of the counties.
something to definitely talk about, and it gets into people's taxes is always a concern for living on an asphalt road. Now you're gonna be on a gravel road, so they have to go through the township and change that, but we have talked to the company that we were grinding with, and they actually have, when you do something like that, they come through and they actually inject it into the road. You can actually get a pretty good road surface that way, so we've looked into a little bit what something like that would look at, but we haven't really gone too far, because the insurance is gonna be a very, touchy situation with the community.
But we could, for the most part, generate a better road by not trying to go back to a 56 and taking it to the gravel road.
I'm just saying.
I think most of those roads are in subdivisions that are in that category.
I don't know where they are.
Yeah.
You know, I get your point on the maintaining the good and basically we are talking about our primary roads because they are the only network roads that are in that category. I guess where I'm coming from is it seems based upon our limited budget, we have to make some choices here as to whether we are going to spend money to keep those good roads in that good PCI category. And are we doing that at the expense of the other local roads and now these local through roads? Because we have this limited funding. And so at what point do we say, okay, yeah, in an ideal world, we would like our primary network to stay good, but we also have over all these local and local through roads that we cannot let them keep falling below 50 PCI. So, it seems to me that as a board, and I'm not putting that on you, I think this is a board discussion to have. As a board, we need to revisit these standards that were established a while back.
It's simple math. It's preservation. We've been talking about preservation now for 12, 15 years. Ever since Dave started working on it back in 2011. He was a commissioner at that time. Yeah, well, so 75 cents to bring it back up and run it for another 3 years. $9, bring it up for 7 years. I mean, so every 7 years, $9. Every 3 years, 75 cents. I mean, it's the math. Now, and this is one of the reasons why I asked, hey, if everything were perfect tomorrow and we could just do preservation, what does it cost us? Is it futile? Is it a futile exercise essentially? And, clearly, we don't want to lose ground by letting a primary road fall apart while we're pretending to make people happy with a few locals and probably wouldn't touch any of the subdivisions. Frankly, we'd be touching the feeders and the high volume local roads. But it's just math. And if we keep the primaries in satisfactory or better shape according to the PCI, and we just chip away and we're going to be adding the other roads as we can to our preservation effort. And
it's called a mix of fixes.
Yeah.
We gotta, so if we do pick a larger, reconstruct road and then we have some little left over, that's when you hit that 75-cent one and try to get as much of that as you can do, but I only can do maybe a half mile or a mile of reconstructs for the same cost of doing miles and miles of preventative.
Right.
But I'm going to challenge the concept of preservation because based upon the presentation we have seen, we are not preserving it because the PCI at the current funding will continue to decrease in all these categories.
It decreased less, I think.
Well, I understand that,
Yeah.
but at what point are we preserving? Are we saying that we are in a preservation mode and for a local road that is somewhere in the 25 to 40 PCI category? So are we just saying that is basically our default position, that we're just going to keep spending money to preserve that local road in that condition? Or are we willing to say, okay, let's adjust our strategy a little bit to at least bring that road up to a better PCI?
Don't you think that's what our community expects us as commissioners to do? Decide on these funding priorities.
Exactly. That's why I'm putting it to the board. Yeah.
We're saying, okay, can we live with a 70
Exactly.
to make these others not
Yeah.
40 to make them 60s?
I mean, in an ideal world, of course, we want them to stay at 84, but we have to make the decision as to whether we are willing to have it at a 75, for example. If we are able to bring the other road up to from a 53 to a 60.
If you look at the slope of deterioration on that, mathematically, it doesn't work out. I hear what you're saying, like we could keep pouring in to the good or excellent or wherever we're at. But if you look at that deterioration slope that you showed, if you did nothing, or if you continued at and look at the angle of the slope, I think it answers, we will never get to our subdivision roads. We will never get to, I mean, like never is the answer, because the slope will just it's not.
We'll keep putting more money into it just to
Mathematically,
keep
it's not
that thing.
possible.
While at the same time, all these other roads,
No,
they will keep decreasing.
I understand what you're saying. It's simple algebra. You know, you've got your axis.
So
you can look at.
maybe we just have to temper our expectations a little bit more and say like, all right, maybe we can't keep it at an 84. Maybe we can keep it at a 75.
So
If that brings the other ratings up slightly more, like I said, around a 59 or a 60.
the goal
Okay.
of mine is to break all 13 townships down next and do the same thing for all 13 townships. And show them what their shortfall is. And if we can start to partner with townships on these local roads, or maybe they do a township millage, this is totally gonna curb what we're able to do. But then again, we have to decide how much we want to put into it. I know we talked about last time, like right now, we have the local match program, where we put in 500,000. And we'll match the township, we bump that to $1
I
million,
do think that.
which offers them more opportunity to try to match with us on a 50-50 and try to build those locals up. I think anytime we can partner and get that funding up on those local roads, will help us maintain the primaries and the locals that are already in good shape.
The 500 number has been a number, and it's way too low. It's been that number. When 500,000 actually did something, that number was a realistic number.
Right.
$500,000 to do anything. And I don't know where we're exactly headed, but we're talking about the ramification of this. Every time we have a special project that we have to fund, it takes away our chances of having any extra money for every time we get a new roundabout. I'm not sure that our construction budget is not exactly 7 million, right? I mean, we've been spending 12 million a year.
Yeah, we've
So really the number is 12 million, and how do we spend it?
Like $1 million, there's $1 million or $1.5 million we put towards signals comes out of that budget. This is truly what comes down to.
That's why my adding to signals. So we have signals that we said, or we have 27 signals or 26. Depending on, my book said 27. I thought we were told 26 the other day. And if each one of those is $500,000, that's $13 million. And yet we're going to spend 500,000 or $1 million a year on something that's only worth 13 million. And here we have a road network, a paved network that's worth, give me a number, a big number.
It's $1 billion.
It's
$1 billion, and we're
replacement.
spending 6 million. So when we light the signal presentation, and we know that we can't have lights failing, but we're way overfunding the signals compared to the rest of our assets.
I mean, my take from the signal presentation was that the investments we were making in those were basically public safety related, because some of those signals were actually failing in terms of their wiring, the mechanism on which they were being mounted, that was rotting and everything. So, and the roundabouts, the way we have discussed them at this board is, we have seen it as a public safety issue too. So, because,
Every time we
I understand that.
turn right,
Yeah.
left-hand side of the county
Absolutely.
road network is bearing the brunt.
We're actually turning left constantly.
It's being, we're punishing
Right, absolutely.
that segment of our roads.
How do other counties do this? We're all funded by MTF, right? We are. And this is, like you said, simple math. We don't have enough money to do what we need to do to maintain our road system. Is it that other counties consistently receive funds from another source, like state money or whatever? I'm just throwing it out there. And we don't, like, how can we learn from other people?
Townships start funding.
But
Yeah.
So we're at the
the Paul Bunyan meeting.
Yeah.
And in the Paul Bunyan meeting, we had this discussion, how we're losing ground. Okay, our money isn't going somewhere, blah, blah, blah. And the question is, okay, is it, and in fact, it was outpacing inflation. And I go back to what Alan and I have been talking about since before I was on or since I just started on the board. He wasn't even a commissioner at all. And it's about competition. It's about having other options available. Clearly, we've had a rough couple of years of accelerated inflation and inflationary costs and cost of labor and everything. But the bottom line is, I think 99% of the time when the engineers prepare an estimate, you know, and they think, I got this sucker down, they're not going to go over this, they go over it. And that's not right. And I don't know if, and you know, we're using the state software or whatnot to do that, but
Well, part of that competition, and we have had multiple discussions at these board meetings as well, that part of the reason why we have that lack of competition is where we are located geographically. I mean, we have been told that we don't have big contractors.
we have had
for some of the
opportunities
projects.
to not mess with and to do right by other contractors who now will never deal with us again. We've had a situation in the past where on the roundabouts, yes, it may have cost us a couple bucks more, or we could have rebid the process, but we had to get it done. And that's the Keystone roundabouts. That situation, we alienated a contractor who's within 60 miles of us. You know,
Yeah, and that was before I was on the
I'm
board,
just
but
telling you.
yeah, no,
and the thing is, if we don't deal squarely and fairly with the small guys, in fact, we should be encouraging the small guys. We were talking about the little fixes, the little patches in the plan here. You know what? Maybe we contract to have the little guys come in and see if they can mobilize for next to nothing and make some of those fixes. Or we take care of some of those little fixes at a time with I saw some great patching. Our people can do it. I know they can.
well, this was something that I was bringing up like all last year when we were getting these bids from only one contractor, and they were 10-11% in excess of the engineer's estimate. And I kept bringing that up. And at that time I was told, no one else wants to bid it because they'll have to get workers from downstate and they'll have to house them and they'll have to do all this stuff. So that will bring up the cost. So we are stuck with where we are. I mean, that was the explanation that was given, and you were here and you listened to it too. That was what we were told at that time.
Well,
So,
we've been told a lot of things.
well, I agree with that, but
So I have a question. So if we're comfortable at a 65 overall rating, we could move assets from the high 84 into the 53 and average that in. Does that sound like a logical thing or no?
We definitely could. I don't know. I guess if you have the board to decide if we're happy with a 65.
I'm just looking at economics.
Yeah. Personally, I feel it's a little low.
60, we are at 64 right
Well,
now.
if we pick the number and then we just,
If we're letting our primaries come down to that.
Yeah.
It's like an overall average. You gotta think your primaries are your main roads where everybody sees them. You know, some of the roads that are bad rated are maybe 100 cars a day that come out of their subs. So you let that car, you bring that up to a 64 and let the one that sees 40,000 cars a day go down to a 6. It's
When you talk about funding, are the other things, is the MVO gonna make any significant difference for us?
$1 million a year.
Well,
Is it
that,
actually $1 million
out of 6 million, 1 million is quite a bit of money.
but is it actually $1 million a year or is it $1 billion every?
It's a cycle, 2 years, so we get 2 out of the 3.
So we get
If you want to break it down that way.
730 or we basically doubled the 600, whatever we used to get yearly.
We used to get 330.
330 and now we're gonna get
So
7.
really, if you take that 330 out of it, we're still not that much.
I guess my bigger, in order for me to make an informed decision, I want to know like I mean, right now we're talking about numbers, 84, 75. What does that mean in terms of road quality?
Right.
I think that's the more important question because we can sit here as a board and say, well, yeah, we want to see it at 70 or 75, but what does that
Pick
mean?
a road
in
you know
terms-
really well and it'll tell you the number that it's at right now.
For the primary roads, right?
When you do that, when you say, I want everything to be at 65, or I want our primary network to be at 65. Or if you say, I want our primary network to be at 70, the cost goes, right? So the level of service that you guys set goes up, right?
The question, the last, if you go back historically, the last 8 years, we've been improving. We've actually, our averages have gone up. But now we're at a situation where we're kind of, okay, that we've had a bunch of additional costs. I should note that when you ask the question, what's everybody else doing?
Yeah.
Okay, so according to the Detroit News recently, there was an article they had and they talked about who has the worst local roads, local primary roads. And we are number 72 in the worst local primary roads out of the counties that they map out. Some counties are multiple
So
jurisdictions.
you're saying,
So we are actually better than most.
okay, so we're not talking about out of 83,
Right, well, it's roughly out of 83.
but you're talking about on the higher end or?
No, 72 are the worst.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
number one would be the worst.
We have
Okay,
the most.
I'm thinking it
we
out,
actually-
I'm like, that's.
No,
what-
no,
yeah,
no.
okay.
And it's funny that you asked that because the person who actually sent me the article thought that, well, it's
Yeah.
funny. How come you guys aren't doing so well? We are doing well.
It's the-
Read the
It's
article.
split.
It's
Yeah,
flipped.
number one.
We are number 72 out of 83 out of the worst situation.
I
So-
believe that.
Yeah.
I think that is not a startling number.
So what are the others doing? I don't know. Maybe we're not doing so badly and we have been improving.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where the Transportation Asset Management Council, they're a big network and most of the counties and the cities and everything go to their conferences and everything, but they also have, this is kind of what standards are or what that industry standard is. This is how you do it. They're training people how to use, this type of information, how to have, a mix of fixes so that you can extend service life of your road. So it's just a matter of managing whatever money you have, whatever pot you have, and trying to get the most you can get out of that pot of money.
And I think that's where Transmaps comes in so well. It's writing the blueprint for us to do that. It's showing us this is the best thing you can do to keep your, overall your entire road system with the best you can with what the funding that you have. It's
And hopefully at some point, the property values break out of a Henley lock or something and we get all kinds of money.
So when we're looking at what Alan's been working on with, I don't want to say change the standards, but I want to say
Grandfather.
grandfathering in and doing things, does that help or hurt when we're
That's something
trying?
that I would like to bring up, during this one is actually talking about Phil quite a bit, shoulders. So we have what's called Safe Streets. It looks like it's a policy that, previous board voted in, where we do a 5-foot shoulder that's for the bikers and people walk, and it does help maintain our roads because we don't go off on a 5 foot. So that's adding 30 to 40% cost to the road project. Did you get away with a 3-foot or a 2-foot or even a 1-foot shoulder? That's definitely something to start.
I mean, you
bringing
have to
in the
change that
conversation.
policy here.
Otherwise,
Want to do it tonight?
We have a construction committee, so I want to make sure that.
And I like what they've done,
Yeah.
but the number,
I love the
numbers
shoulders, but-
Yeah, I love the shoulders too and longevity.
So I went through the Act 51, I got a draft and I had part of that component is the non-motorized, we have to report. Anytime we do paved shoulders, 4 foot or more, and report that to the state, we have to, prove that we spend at least 1% of our MTF money. So we had to spend at least, $150,000 a
Okay.
year.
On extended shoulders?
Non-motorized.
Or non-motorized,
We did $1.9 million last year. So I looked at one of the projects, Carlin Road, we had 5-foot paved shoulders. The shoulder portion of that project was $592,000 out of the $1.2 million project. So it's 49.9% cost to add trench out, add in all the base.
Yeah, and if you go watch them do that, it's a clumsy process. It's not. I mean, Derek, you could speak to it, but I've done a little bit of it, and you're not gonna get the lowest cost.
No.
But could we do 4s or 3s and?
That's the thing, you're looking at geometrics of your road, is there a lot of curves, is there a lot of people who run off, do you wanna go wider in those areas? Do you want agricultural, do you have a lot of bikers? That's some of the issues where you kind of have to gauge, where you wanna use a 3 or a 5.
Well, I would suggest that we, rather than having a cookie cutter kind of a standard, maybe we should be looking more on a case by case kind of, or road by road kind of basis. If on a road, we don't need a 4-foot shoulder and we can do like a 2-foot shoulder, let's have something like that in our standard that gives our engineers the flexibility to say like, you know what, on this road, we don't need to have 4-foot, and we can have so maybe that's I would prefer an approach like that.
There's several, you know, is it rural, is it urban district, what's the car count? I feel like there's a lot of components that can play into this. That
Right.
we really need to. look at.
I do drive 633 every day. And the area, almost every day, and the area that we just redid it with the wider shoulder, put the shoulders on, boy, that just seemed to drive safe. And that was in the area that goes down through the S curves as you continue to go south and there's no shoulders. You got wide vehicles and they're passing on the road, and it seems like some widening is necessary as we move forward.
Which is probably hard for us to figure out, but we need to figure out too, is 633, we were constantly out there maintaining those shoulders from the operation side. Now we're not doing that, so we're able to work on other projects, we're not putting the money on gravel.
right.
But we're.
All right, that seems like
It
hard
costs
money.
us more, but we're not maintaining it nearly as much.
So we circle back to the main issue that we were talking about is how to address the local roads. And I guess I'm not suggesting by any means that we have to come up with the solution at today's meeting, but I think we
Because
need
of
to
the,
look at
are you
that.
saying, we talked about, Dan, you talked about kind of the promises that made to people in the community in the past
Right.
about some of these things that have gotten out there, and those aren't being made anymore, and we can kind of, but if we want to do something with that, we have to have a plan for it. We're just not going to tell you to, get those paved, and what policy do you use to decide?
And the thing that got us into trouble is every time, we went to a township and they were pushing about a road, and I was like, oh, that's a through local, well, that's a through local. Well, we can't do 200 car a day of roads as through locals. That's where we have to have some sort of parameter that I can stand up and say, I know, past manager may have said that to you, but for our policy, and this is why, and try to explain overall.
If we address them fairly, it seems to me like
Yes,
we
it's
can
gotta be
stand on that.
Across the board of all 13 townships, it has the same reason.
One option in addressing, for example, we have some local roads. We have certain local roads that are failing right now, correct? And there are also local roads that are probably are well traveled. They have higher traffic counts. The one that comes to mind off the top of my head is Barney. I think Barney is a failing, or portions of it are failing. And it has quite a lot of traffic. I don't know when the last traffic count was done on that.
Rachel actually designed this recently. She did a great job. She can probably pull that up for us really quickly. That's something else I'd like to say. Larry, if this presentation, I get a chance to say it. I'd also like to thank Rachel and the engineering department, because they've also been a huge part of this. They've been, engineers have been doing something like this for a lot of years. They bring a lot of good data to us to help make all this possible. So I don't want them to be forgotten that, they've been very big part of this as well.
How do you feel about weight restrictions? I think some of the roads like Barney's have really taken a beating with the industrial traffic that it really wasn't designed for. That traffic could go down M72 and go through the new roundabout there when that's done, and come to Front Street and go west on Front Street, and stay off our roads that weren't designed for it.
The townships can have ordinances restricting that. I know downstate, they work with the townships and they develop truck routes, if you will, through the local. So they
Because a lot of the
don't
areas,
move
I'm suggesting having big trucks and having that there are alternate routes, and the shortest for certain businesses might not be best for residents of the county.
I think the problem with weight restrictions is they're unenforceable ordinances, because if the sheriff was sitting in this room, the first thing he'd say is, I don't have any guys to put on the.
But we can't enforce them.
How?
We have a waymaster,
We have waymasters.
and we have the.
Is it the person?
I'm a guy, I'm a certified waymaster. I used to do it. We can pull people over. The problem we start to get to, we don't have bulletproof vests.
Let's say, how
We
do
don't
we,
carry
that,
tasers, we don't carry guns. We pull them over.
No, but the state, the
Truckers,
businesses that are gonna do this
Right.
are gonna not do it after you.
We're not asking you to go out on 75 and start.
That stretch, that first stretch on Bernie, for example, it was rebuilt not too many years ago. It wasn't that long ago that was rebuilt.
Bernie?
Yeah, it's on the hill, so it gets tore up fast, but there's that first stretch there.
So we're looking at, if I'm reading it correctly, we're looking at somewhere between like about 3,500 cars, between 3,200 and 3,500,
Yeah,
Right?
it's 35.
3,500.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm just
What is Zimmerman on?
throwing out options here. I mean, maybe that is one way to,
Yeah,
as a parameter that Dan, you were looking
Get an
for.
idea.
10,000 around there.
Yeah. Well, Barney's more like a local through than a local.
So it's not,
Yeah.
I honestly thought more people cut through Barney, because you know how 72 is really awkward and there's no way to cut unless if you go down Bay Street. I kind of thought the counts were much higher on Barney Road.
Well, when was that count done?
That was done 2023,
so last
August,
year.
middle. end of
Yeah.
August.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Okay.
So I mean, that's just one correct
I love my.
criteria that I'm thinking of, is we look at these local roads in terms of their traffic volumes.
I was suggesting that we look at, say, why are certain local roads getting beat up and why are some not getting beat up?
Mhm.
And we would kind of adjust our plan to that.
Mhm.
We might talk to the businesses, we might reconstruct them in a certain, if it was necessary, reconstruct them in a different way so they would hold up longer if there's no other way to do these things.
Yeah, I don't know why, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know our roads take a beating, but. getting back
But
to that, they can't
the
take-
brakes
take a
coming down the
beating.
hill, the tires are pulling on
Yeah.
that. And they're all services, they're all space. Their trucks going to the concrete service.
Yeah.
Because it's the closest way to cut.
Right,
Way to,
right.
way to come.
Yeah.
But so do all residents of the county have to pay for that?
Exactly.
I'd be, do we have a truck route infrastructure? Planned out or no?
I know every year when the cross loss comes on, there's something in the truck routes.
So I mean, it's literally just
For
set up
general.
truck routes because. You know, while this roundabout was closed off, I could sit on the Roush Road and watch the semis using Oak Roush Road to car.
What
Which
is
they're not
Day
supposed to be
Drive?
on, but
Yeah.
What is Day Drive? Why don't I know what that is?
That's up by isn't it up by the mall?
Just tell me a business on it and I'll know.
Get a tower on it.
Tower, yeah, we have a tower. on it.
That's where the water
Oh.
tower's at? Yes, okay. There's a church there.
Yes.
Okay. Because wow, that one just kind of stood out in a sea. It's the dark red.
Yeah, but. I don't
And it's
know
a
where
dead end
going.
road.
Yeah, it's a
That's why I was
dead end road.
asking about,
Yeah.
so that's why I was asking about the dead end roads. So like, how do we factor those in?
It's only important to the people that live on it.
Right.
The traffic counts help to, just kind of decide.
Yeah, the Frankie Road one obviously is a standout. And that number,
Well, Dan promised a traffic count in
Yeah,
the last
they-
meeting, so.
Use that traffic.
that number is 4409
So
for the traffic
And
count?
we're actually out redoing those now, so we'll have current within a month when I go back there.
So that's, how long ago was this count from?
this one was from 2023
Okay,
last year.
Was it your under construction?
And now with
It was under
school, et cetera.
It was
So-
on 9/15, so if school opened just after Labor Day, I think that would have been in session.
By the way, that little cut through there's always been bad. Yeah. Yeah, little subdivision, it's never been good subdivision.
So the way that Rachel's using this data, that we're using this data is basically all that data that is in this transmap document is in those these lines. So we can say, hey, show me all the ones that are, the locals that are in this range. And then we'll know, okay, we need to do preventative maintenance on this, or we need to do full reconstruction on this. So that's how we're going through this data along with the traffic count data. And we've come up with a rough estimate of our first year or 1 year plan. And we're working as a group to just go through this data and make sure that we're putting the perfect mix of fixes together for each individual year, banking on the millage, really.
And does that include the possibility of taking it on back with draft?
No.
So I'm gonna use that as a segue to move on to the next item, which is gravel roads. Let's just, So is there a separate presentation on that or, okay,
Just separate discussion.
okay.
It's just over discussion. And we do have ratings on gravel roads as well. And that's called IBR, and that's investment-based reporting. And what that is doing is going through, and the majority of it is thickness of gravel and proper drainage.
So in your presentation, I didn't see like a PCI for gravel roads. Is that because they were not part of the trans map?
Right, PCI is pavement.
Okay, they were just, okay.
Yep, IBR is
That makes
gravel.
sense. So how do we measure the condition of gravel roads? Because some are more rural townships. Majority of their local roads are gravel roads, correct? So how are we measuring their condition?
Same deal. We have internal people that went through, and there is a scale for a rating for gravel roads. And like I said, the majority of it is thickness of gravel and also proper drainage. So if you look up here, it'll tell you each individual segment and what that rating is for that segment.
And it seems like we generally just kind of respond when somebody has a real problem with their gravel road. We've gone out and graded it and taken care of it. I
We
mean,
do a lot of
Yeah.
maintenance and a lot of internal maintenance for
Yeah.
gravel.
So the big thing we're trying to do now is when we go out there, is ask the reason why is this road in this kind of shape? And there's usually, maybe there's not a crown on it, there's water issues, so we're trying to figure out some of those issues, so we're not constantly going back to those areas.
So is it mostly complaint based that if we get a complaint about a road, we respond to it
Well, we do like right now, we just did brine, so we hit every.
other than the,
We could just hit every single road and,
Yeah, you grade it.
every gravel road's been graded, gone through, looked at. But now as the brine wears off before our next application, we'll start to get those complaints.
okay.
A lot of those are probably, you got a great heavy truck traffic and stuff like that probably does play a role in the, particularly chatter out.
Well, dirt bikes and the side by side.
Side by sides are, we can't keep ahead of them. The guys are out brining this time, their side by side is right behind them, just tearing it up. They think it's funny.
We just did South Ray Road and we made these nice ditches. It looks great. And there's kids just on their bikes jumping the,
The other guys are out there with the bulldozers and graders, they're jumping in the ditches, we had to go
just tearing it up.
talk to their parents and ask them to please not do that, or law enforcement.
So we're using this as a tool, but also trying to see like what townships are dealing with. We get a lot of communication with townships on this particular road is a problem, this particular road's a problem. But we're visiting them. We're doing a lot of our seasonal road grading right now because we just did our grinding. But we have quite an aggressive grading crew that in that springtime is real aggressive. We typically try to get our brine done earlier than we did this year, so we have to blade everything right before the brine guy gets there, so it's kind of fast and furious. So we're using this as a tool. I think Dan said, let's pick the top 3 worst gravel roads in each township. And let's try to attack those and work with the township on.
We did put a plan together for those 3 roads in each township, and we're gonna try to go to the townships and ask them if that's something they want to try to partner with us. And maybe we could supply, a lot of the labor and equipment if they could buy a little gravel and try to do some work with those roads.
That's typically affordable for the township perspective.
Any questions regarding gravel roads? Okay, let's move on to SADs. I know that, and you and I have had some preliminary discussions about the SADs you want to share.
Yeah. The more I think about the SADs, the more we put into them, unfortunately, the more it's gonna take away from our local network. There was talk of, right now we do the cost sharing, and it's only available for local roads. It's trying to force townships into spending that money on the local roads. But then it takes, it's not a lot of money going for them, but maybe they could do something with a gravel road improvement, or maybe possibly an SAD improvement. We'll have some money there. But again, the more that we'll allow to go to those kind of projects, the more it takes away from our local infrastructure that we're trying to get the department of split. But unfortunately, 500,000 split between 13 townships, it's not a lot to do much on a road. We are wanting to bundle 3 years together, but still.
From a public relations standpoint. More people live in the subdivisions than drive on the road. I mean, what I'm saying is, it's the road in front of your house is the most
That's the
important.
most important road. in town.
And so we have to think about those clusters and allowing those allowing that money to go to the SADs is probably not a bad thing.
It's probably
Yeah.
something to, it's definitely worth the discussion.
I've always believed that the local units of government are the best judge for
What's important.
important to their particular constituents and their unique needs, and rather than us dictating to them what may be a priority in Garfield Township may not be the same as Grant Township, or what may be a priority. How Long Lake Township may want to spend its share may not be the same way how Green Lake wants to spend. So my preference would be to let the individual townships decide how they want to use their share.
I have a question on SADs and engineering. When I came on the board, we were gonna internalize all the engineering as a soft cost for the SADs. We're down in errors. Before that, you might be able to attest, we just hired engineers to do it, correct? So do you remember how we used to do it?
No, I think we've done the engineering for for those projects.
I think Gordon Fraser used to design them.
Yeah, we made it.
Townships were reimbursed.
It wasn't,
I know
it wasn't with
An
OHM.
engineering stance for us, we can do an SAD a lot quicker than we can do, say, like the West South Lake project. That might take an engineer. That Derek probably help me out. I mean, a little longer.
We didn't have the permitting, it would have taken us a lot shorter, but it took us several months to come up with that, because we had to redo that critical
We
curve.
could probably go through those other projects.
SADs are a few weeks to a month.
Yeah, so something that's kind of we're looking at right now. Obviously engineering's kind of been, we gotta decide which direction to go with engineering right now. Yeah, we are down where we were, but we have to decide staffing wise what makes the most sense. And doesn't it make sense to maybe they do that, we sub out that one big project a year that eats up the entire engineering department and let them focus on the SADs, local through projects, and then what's that cost versus having a full-time employee versus what subbing out, one big project a year. So that's kind of where I'd like to start to look. It doesn't make sense to hire 2 more engineers back in when you have that cost in there versus just subbing out that big project a year. And then letting our engineers focus on what they can get done, what they're good at.
It's really good if we have good relationships with our community members. When they talk to us about their local, very local projects, that somebody's involved in our very local business. There are great contractors to do this. I mean, APM does some, Gordy's done them. There's quite a few engineering firms, but it's not like having the same contact here. They can call somebody at the road commission And we know what we did last year, and we know what they did the year before, and I think to be consumer friendly, I wouldn't want us to shift to the big projects versus be involved with the members of our community on stuff that's right in front of their homes. If you're not gonna add any more, from my perspective, it would be farm out the really big complicated stuff. And we, even with two more engineers, we farmed out the big stuff there,
Mhm.
right? I mean,
We're not,
even-
we're not gonna do
even when we have-
roundabouts or
Yeah, we have
bridges.
never done roundabouts.
we're still farming it out, even though we had,
We're not doing bridges, roundabouts, signals,
Right.
big things like
and it's
that.
not likely the county road commission is going to,
No,
unless you have pretty big staff.
because that will increase our expense. Okay, any other discussion regarding SADs?
Did you bring that to a close that you
I
said?
mean, do we need a motion to that effect, or are you prepared for us to actually make a decision on the issue of allowing townships to use their local match?
I would go there. I'd like that.
I mean, it's all based on population of miles, so. I kind of looked at it, do we set on an amount per mile? Cause everybody, we get our funding the same per mile regardless of what township it's in. And if you have a small township, small SAD, it seems to me that our funding should be prorated to that as it would be a bigger one, instead of all the funds from one bucket going to a small project. Just kind of a little more equitable
So,
for the residents.
yeah, I don't,
Residents should be splitting up evenly.
I don't
If I
understand.
could go, we get $5,700 per mile, right?
What's that?
You get $5,700
We
per
get like 3,300 per month,
mile.
at 51 per
These are
location.
for paved roads.
Right. If we said, we use 10 years,
Right.
it'd be
So you're
$33,000
thinking
per
allocation
mile
for
of
township
SCD,
is
and that
based
would
on
be our
paved
cap.
miles. Okay, that makes sense to me.
We still have to do maintenance, we still do winter maintenance, we
Right.
still do all this other stuff.
Is that gonna equal probably out to a lower number?
So we're not,
Uh,
I don't mean to interrupt, but right now we are talking about removing the restriction that is currently in place upon the townships to only use the local match on local
I
projects.
think what Phil's suggesting, instead of doing that as a whole means funding mechanism.
Ridiculous stuff.
So we have to go to number 4 then, which is the cost share amount limits. That we have to address that. Is that where we will be addressing that?
No, I think Phil's talking about doing it completely
Yeah,
different.
like something a
mathematical.
little
It
separate
wouldn't be
outside.
500,000.
But I think we
$15,000.
still need to focus and partner on
Yeah.
some of these other
That makes
locals
sense.
that are match policy, just because the funding isn't there.
So we would take the arbitrary 500,000 divided by the townships and say, okay, you're gonna get this much per mile.
That would stay the same, the SADs would be a little bit of a different calculation, where we would budget, we're not gonna be doing 100 SADs in a year, so we can kind of budget these out and as we go through the budget process, set aside some extra funding specifically for SADs. I also think we, at some point, look at gravel roads and maybe get back to, we contribute some of our, forces and equipment towards some of those projects and rely on the townships for the materials, because in the past, it used to be 100% materials paid for by the township, but we would place it, but then they pay for trucking, so especially because most of the gravels are in your rural townships,
And I'd be
where the
very
funding is
favor of
more
that
limited.
because they-
So I'd like to
change.
look at something there to kind of help them out, get some of these gravel roads go back up.
So what we are talking about is a complete revamp of our current cost sharing policy.
I think
That's what you're
It's
suggesting,
policy.
is rather than going right now, what we do is take $500,000 divided by the number of townships. You're
I
proposing
think
some
we
sort
should
of.
have that. I think that, Michigan Township Association, and County Road Association put a joint letter, and they recommend that road agencies do work with the townships and set aside funds
Right,
prorated like that, or
So they can direct
Road.
some of that work.
okay. All right, then
Sounds
so-
good.
Removing the restriction would be good then.
right, but it's probably not something
Not tonight.
we would be doing tonight, because so what's the time frame on when you're going to be bringing that
probably
revamp
when we
policy?
through policy committee,
Okay,
running through that.
And it'll include dirt road, gravel road.
I think we need to.
I think that'd be great.
okay. So let's, so then that would be coming to the policy committee in the near future, I would imagine, and
But we're talking about increasing the dollar though per year, not more than the 500,000 overall. Right?
We do that through the budget process.
Right,
It'll
but that's what we're talking about with this is dollars above and beyond. Like if we're doing gravel or something, that's additional dollars.
We're still doing that now. I mean,
It's all budget on where we're budgeting.
it's both, right? It's all increasing the dollar amount.
Yeah,
and
because our
also
dollars
how we
don't go
are
as
gonna-
far as they did
Sure.
before, so I hope that we're gonna address that too.
Yeah, and I thought that was Roman numeral 4, but apparently it's something else. What's the cost share? What are we talking
That
about?
was, they had a conversation of.
Okay, so that's,
500,000, do we want to move that up?
oh,
okay, so so that's separate from what we were talking about revamping the allocation.
Well, Phil just kind of alluded to where we need to deal with that. It's just in the budget process, and we're budgeting, we set aside it in the budget for that particular aspect.
So we don't have to do anything tonight.
I don't think we really have to.
Okay, I mean, okay, it's on the agenda, so I figured
No,
that's
right.
what we were doing.
I
But
wanted to
it's-
definitely
then-
make sure with a conversation.
Sure.
Confidential to bring on.
I think so basically, is there consensus on the board that the dollar amounts, cost share, dollar amounts should be increased from 500,000 to 1 million?
Yes.
Or to more.
Yeah.
Whether it's a million or.
So at least 1 million, and then we'll let the staff work out the details on how that's gonna get allocated.
The best way to do it is to leverage dollars. We don't have enough dollars to do the project, so how do you leverage the partners to do more?
And that's what I like about SAD, is I hope we encourage people to do them, because somebody else is paying, not out of our road commission budget, to increase the value of our roads and the value of the road in front of the house. So I don't think we should do any policies that would discourage
Right.
SAD.
We
Yeah.
need to leverage.
If
more
people are
dollars.
really willing to write the check to improve the roads, they're willing to make the investment, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I agree with you because I think it comes down to a point of fairness too. You are asking the rest of everyone else to pay for the road that's in front of your house that they will never drive through, right?
I think
Or use.
But one of the consistent complaints that I hear on the SAD process is just different townships have different rules for matches. So if we had funds that were available for those townships that don't have the ability to match in their budget, that would encourage more people to participate. And if they're allowed to use their cost share dollars to create a pool for SAD matches.
What we should suggest is follow Garfield Township's policy. At your township to have set aside money for roads.
They do in their budget every year.
Every the township should be encouraged,
Yeah, some do, some don't, and some probably don't because they have reasons to do it.
Maybe the cost sharing would help some of the, like I'm.
Right,
like
yeah,
Grant
maybe that-
Township. Grant Township has pretty.
And it
tall dollars.
would, yeah, it would help those smaller townships that are not able to set aside funds specific for. Okay, well, we'll wait for staff to bring proposals to the policy committee, hopefully soon. And I know we're working on some other projects to the purchase policy and everything, so we have a couple of things on our, and the SAD policy, actually. The policies that we have to work on. All right, moving on to signals.
Okay, I just wanted us to think about the fact that our budget is only $6-7 million, where we're talking about here 10. And we're putting a lot of money towards signals. Not only are the projects that we're approving really expensive. We have a whole department now that's supporting, that's not within that. And I was gonna suggest that every time we look at an intersection, some of our older intersections, the stuff is, I think it was pointed out to us that the stuff is old and junky. But maybe we don't have to have every state of the art thing that we need. Maybe there's less expensive ways. I wish we could look at what it costs the state. Maybe we can't. Maybe I've asked the staff to do this. What it costs the state to do an intersection versus what it costs to do us. And if they have simpler designs or so they buy more of a standard that we look at things. You know, we spent a lot of money on Scoot. It was here before I got here, and when I was a kid, my family used to drive Telegraph Road, 40 miles of it, and you could go from one end of the end of Telegraph to the other without stopping.
Yeah.
We have a road, our main road, that no matter when you drive it, at what time, you, with all this expensive technology, you can never drive on without stopping.
Yes, I can.
As far as I would vote to abandon it and get somebody who knew how to time the lights to take our major crosstown artery and drive it from one end to the other without stopping. And the side roads are gonna all fall in there, and they'll do as good as this fancy thing we have, which has people stopped at every light. That's a personal. I think we've spent a lot of money on
I
it.
made the argument.
I don't believe it works.
It doesn't work in certain parts. It doesn't work on the west side of it. It hasn't worked in all these years since I've been on the board. I don't know, we even have stopped talking about it because we finally, I think it's because we give up because the signal is not there. Well, then why would we put that technology in a place where there wasn't any signal? But those were decisions made, under the previous administration, but we can't do anything. But I agree with you. I run into that same problem on South Airport Road. I've never once been able to go through all these lights without,
I will say the school system, that's how it's designed to do. It's supposed to flow traffic, move people on and off the roads as much as possible, not to a straight line, a main line. It's supposed to actually let the arterials,
But our main
that would be.
Our main things across town are the ones that are the most backlogged.
But coming over here on that intersection of Woodmere, and that traffic was backed up right all the way past that blinking yellow light past the YMCA. I mean,
The Silver Lake food loop is not possible.
Cluster needs to be abandoned.
It does need to be
It needs to be
abandoned.
abandoned.
There's two scoot
Makes no
routes
sense.
and one is useless and let's just say it didn't do what we thought it would, okay? And we'll just leave it at that. The other one, though, I don't know is necessarily all is lost, but the Silver Lake scoot loop is a waste of time for our traffic signal department.
Silver Lake School Loop.
It's like the YMCA, the new intersection we just did at
Oh, I see what you're.
Stone Ridge subdivision,
It gets that.
my house,
Okay.
basically, that I drive a lot. And I understand that there were some over promising and things and they're not here anymore and we're done with that and we move on. But I think that, we have a person that's an expert in this on our staff and I think that their opinion matters and they could make some great suggestions without fear from anybody at the board or the administration having a problem with it. And if that person thinks that this is a waste of time, I trust their opinion. And so that would be a reasonable thing to look into. I can't speak for the South Airport because, I just go 95, 100 across South Airport and you make everything. It's like, I can't-
It's like 3:00 in the morning.
I gotta wait.
Yeah, I mean,
No, But so I don't know a lot about South Airport, but I specifically asked some questions about the Silver Lake Loop because I live there. And so I drive it a lot and I don't really understand and I'm trying to learn.
It is interesting. I mean, the South Airport Road, I've lived here for a lot of years. And when the timing and the order of light changes happened, the South Airport and Garfield, I didn't like it. I still don't. It was very good before. Same with South Airport and Cass. It was very good before. However,
yeah, no, it's not.
it's not that.
Because that's the way I
Yeah.
go today.
I will say this, I rarely am at South Airport and Cass for more than 30 seconds in traffic's moving. That's not a bad one, but I always get stopped at that stupid park at South Airport. And frankly, Barlow, it's anybody's guess, but South Airport and Garfield, it's terrible right now. It's just terrible. I don't care which way you're going, it's terrible.
So maybe we should find out if we're asking a staff member to do something that's futile. And that they should have the ability to be honest about it, because there's no repercussions about it. It's just, let's make the best decisions moving forward. Or if it's worth it and what it would take.
So there's those choices to bring Scoot in were previous even to Haley.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
We're
yeah.
not- That's why I want
No, no,
her
I'm just,
opinion.
just so you know.
Yeah.
We were sold an expensive system. that
I was
cost us-
referring to Commissioner Gilman.
No, I
To
was just
start
saying-
with, it cost us about $1.5 million just to start with on the scoop. Just to get it going.
Nothing like, it wasn't her idea.
No, I was actually talking about him.
Yeah.
No, I think you were were you the only one? Or
I'm
you were
the only one.
He was the
You were
only
the only one on the
So-
board when the school was
So if
purchased.
he thinks that this is not a great idea,
Yeah, I was-
I know that Jason has absolutely no problem hearing that, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
oh.
Like, I feel really comfortable saying that. There's no repercussions, like, let's just hear it flat out from an expert on this.
I'll schedule a meeting with Haley early next week.
Yeah.
And I'll bring it up at the next board meeting.
And you know, the only people who don't fail at things are the people who don't
Don't
try.
try.
Yeah.
Because maybe we failed at these things. I wasn't important about. I'll take, put some, we have to try things. We have to try innovative new ways.
Yeah, nothing is
The
sacred
signals
here,
were-
No,
right?
I just don't wanna
nothing-
waste her time
yeah.
and the department.
Just because we made a decision several years ago to install this system, we need to relook at it with a fresh set of eyes if it's working. And if it's not working,
Just going to not die in the sword.
Oh my
no,
gosh.
we're not gonna just, say like, well, we did it, so now
No,
we are
we
gonna.
have, we have somebody that's
I'm
an
from
expert in this for a reason. Let
Just
her
be
guide us.
aware, it is a matter of perspective. I mean, we do have to consider all the major construction that's been going on the last.
I was gonna
couple
point
years.
that out too, especially right
So
now.
right now, it's really hard to know whether or not it's,
Yeah.
that system's performing for us or not. I mean,
But the Silver Lake Loop is obvious. It
Yeah.
doesn't have the
Yeah.
distance
It's
and it
not.
has the weird angle.
The Cass Road and South Airport Road, that's the one, right, like today, that's the way I took. That left, those left turn lanes, they were backed up right to that where that college is, that campus. Part of that is because a lot of traffic is getting diverted because of the construction, so I do take that into account. But in addition to the scoop, I think let's have Haley also answer some of the questions that Commissioner Lehman has posed about, are there more efficient and cost-effective ways?
I have talked to Haley a little bit in depth on that. The only thing that we may add to ours is the ped for, pedestrians crossing. And I believe it's only a couple $1,000 savings. That was like the biggest thing that we put in ours that we could possibly save. But in the future, as we get more sidewalks and we grow, if you had to add that in after the fact, I guess it's a lot of money. So it's a very small savings.
if we have to add something in, isn't there something that if we're forced to do something, aren't we supposed to be reimbursed?
Mandates, yeah, it's a mandate.
Exactly. So I'm
There's
just
a lot of
saying,
unfunded mandate.
There's a lot of unfunded mandates.
Yeah, I mean,
just saying.
Maybe that was the wrong word.
yeah.
If we wanted to, is that what you?
Safety concerns
Yeah.
for high crossing also now became.
And that's what my concern would be, is like, if a signal person is giving us a recommendation based upon public safety, I'm very reluctant. I can't speak for other commissioners here. I would be very reluctant to overrule that.
For some
because-
small dollar savings.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the questions I didn't ask in the presentation was, I know it's all safety driven. Lights versus flashing lights. And above intersection, because I traveled downstate last week and I noticed a lot of people had above intersection flashing lights.
I know
Where we kind of have them on the sides, and I don't know what.
I'm not sure on that. I don't know. A lot of people have been getting a lot of calls lately, like, hey, how come your lights don't cycle off to just flashing now? The studies are coming out that drunk drivers and different impaired drivers are more likely to see, your red, green and stop versus if it just goes in a flash and not be cautious. So that's kind of a directive that is turning along lights. I have had several calls like, hey, how come this light never, it used to be at 9 o'clock at night, it went into cycle mode and we're leaving it. It's actually, studies are showing that for safety reasons, it's better to leave it that way. So I know it does.
I always stop at the yellow light flashing lights when I've tied one on, I mean.
And if I'm driving late at night, I'm driving.
It was always below 0.08, just so we're clear. Yeah, it was always below 0.08. No one is suggesting otherwise. All right, any other discussion on signals? Okay, well, good. Let's move on to item 6B, office technician services.
Yep.
So this is, I solicited Brian Newhoff, OHM, and Gordy Frazier for filling our office tech position, or role for our Diamond Park Bridge. I've been handling it for the last couple weeks, but construction really hasn't gotten underway yet. We've just been doing removals and whatnot. So I got a quote from OHM for $32,520, and a quote from Brian Newhoff for $35,750. Brian Newhoff's includes $2,800 of contingency in case the project goes over. They can handle those duties for us. We're recommending Brian Newhoff.
Make the motion to hire Brandon Newhoff for 35,750 more or less.
Motion from Commissioner Newman, support from Commissioner Gittleman to hire Brian Newhoff for office technician services in the amount of 30,750 more or less. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Underwood,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Corn.
Yeah.
Lehman.
Yes.
Kiss.
Yes. Passes.
It is nice to see somebody else do the game here putting in, so it's
Yeah.
nice to see.
Yeah.
This is the second time they've done that. We had another one with the two bridge crossings they put in recently for too, and they received those as well, so.
Yeah, that's
Petition
good.
is good.
That's good.
It's good.
All right, well, next we are on to our second public comment. Any member of the public wishes to make a comment, if you could just make a pause so that we can read the rules and then you speak.
Any person may make an advance appointment with the board regarding road commission topics for a regular or special meeting in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. If an appointment is made, the topic will be an agenda item. The following applies to public comments. 1, please state your name and address. 2, topic must be relevant to the road commission. 3, individuals are allowed to speak once for up to 3 minutes on a single topic, which may be extended by the chair. A group addressing the board requires a designated spokesperson who may speak up to 10 minutes. 5, the board will not act on any item from the public that is not on the agenda.
All right, thank you. If you could please state your name.
Yes, hello, my name is Linda McGinnity. I'm currently running for County Commissioner for District 1 in Liberty Township, Green Lake. So I'm here, this is a learning exercise for me. I never knew what the commissioners did, so I'm here to find out. And also, what is the SAD? So I'm looking-
Special assessment. District.
Special assessment, thank you. So we did have access to your 2022 financial statements on the website. And I saw that the audit in 22 wasn't finished until July of 23. Where is your audit this year for 23?
It'll be done next week. I was on the phone with Peter, our auditor, today, and we just wrapped up the last few remaining items.
Okay, good. I'm a bookkeeper by trade, so this interests me. I was also looking at the snowfall data, and of course, we all know as we live here that the last few years have been very, very light. And you budgeted 3.4 for the last 2 years, but it's no removal. The last actual budget I got is 2.5 that you did in 22 year. So what happens to the savings? What do you guys budget that with the snowfall removal savings? I mean, that would be the.
We do budget amendments.
Yeah.
I mean,
And if we don't spend it, it'll sit in fund balance and it'll be budgeted in the following year. You gotta remember, a lot of times when our crews are charging winter maintenance, that's for clearing the roads and things like that. If it isn't snowing, they're doing routine maintenance. So we're still paying our forces
Right,
labor
yeah. There's
in the
no-
winter, and there's equipment charges. The only thing we're really saving is on the material, the salt and sandbags
And the overtime.
and some overtime.
So that's where where did that extra?
But we did have a lot of ice events this year, so there was some overtime because they were out.
So it's almost gives more overtime than just straight snowfall.
Yeah, in the last 2 years, I've only got my snow blower out 5 times. So, not what I'm used to in northern Michigan. So that's what it is. So you guys are gonna go around to the townships now and see what they're gonna do with the cost sharing?
Not at the, we first have to do our policy, through a policy committee, establish, what our new policy would be, and then we'll roll that out. with townships when they're ready. But we go to the townships quarterly. Our road manager and one of the commissioners attends, township meetings quarterly to provide them with updates on the projects and developments that are taking place.
I think you're going to Green Lake this next week.
We were just at Blair Township this week, myself, Dan and Larry.
I think next week we are in Long Lake, or next week or two. I think Long Lake is coming up, and then Green Lake. So
Well, thank you for allowing me to sit in and ask questions.
you're welcome. Thank you. Any other member of the
I have
public?
a question, if you don't mind. Red Silva, Lakeshore Drive, by the way. Have you, thought about, trying to reclassify some of the busy local roads as primary roads? Which it looks like under MDOT's rules, you have some room to do that. And I think that would bring in more funding.
We have, and I believe the rules state that for every primary road that we give up, for every local road that we make a primary road, we have to give up a primary road. So it's not like we can keep adding to it.
Well, you may be right, although the colloquy that Wayne had with somebody at MDOT, it sounded like if you could justify it, they don't want you to exceed more than 1/3 of your roads being primary, and you're only at 25%. It might be worthwhile.
We actually receive a little more on a local road than a primary road.
I wish you'd spend on a local road.
We received $3,008 for a primary road mile. And this is from May of 23 to April 24, and then 3,300 on a local road. Where we do see a bump is the additional amount if the road is inside of the urbanized area. We do receive an additional $17,000 on a primary road for that, and another $2,800 on a local.
Which does help if
Lakeshore Drive were to become primary.
yeah. Sure. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Greg.
Any other member of the public who wishes to make a comment?
Brian McManus, Mayfield Township, really like Larry's report that Transmat seems like it's gonna, be a good tool to tell us where we're at. And I understand, putting in as the first example, the road village money and gearing off of that, but I think, we can't give up on the locals. There was some discussion, I don't think you want to give up on locals. I think if you look at pavement management in itself and giving up on locals are kind of mutually exclusive, you'll fail. Because, you're at 80 and 50 now, 50% by about a 10 on a local. Is at that point on Larry's curve that they're about ready to deteriorate at an accelerated rate. And so they go quicker. It's not a straight line. If you saw Larry's curve, it's a curved line. So, don't give up on the locals or suggesting that you can't give up on the locals. It will fail. Everything will fail. I realize the money shortage, it's not easy. There's money that's been going on forever. It's not just something that happened now. So you need to, I suggest you do that. In Mayfield, we're disappointed that this through local process seems to be diminishing, but try to keep that in there as well. I realize it sounds like it was a little bit of smoke, but not totally. We realized that you needed to have that 85% on the system, and we're not quite there. But so if you have to cut that back, I like you talked about traffic maybe as being indicators. So maybe take your 120 miles of through local. I was on that first dream plan and cut it to 60, cut it to 30, cut it to 40.
don't totally base it on traffic, though. A little township like Mayfield may not have the traffic, but we have the needs, as well. You know, I heard from several farmers that they could drive their combine in the field at 7 or 8 miles an hour. And they could drive it on Heron Road at 2 miles an hour before it was fixed. And that fix that we did, that reconstruction, has been great for our community. You can't, the traffic count was really low, and it's really when people are using it. You know, people will avoid bad roads that puts pressure on your other areas, and this is kind of normalizing traffic back, where it has been. And there have been 3 fatalities in Mayfield Township in the last month. I don't think any of them are due to road condition. In fact, one was on 633 Rittery Drive. A young kid going up over the hill. One was at M113 and M37. And that was one of the things that Heron Road actually does help on, is release traffic there. So that's another good reason to maybe not just look at existing traffic counts. They are important, and they got to be your primary thing. Third fatality was just running off the end of a road on the same day that the fatality happened at M113 and 37. So I don't know if the road commission, it's not your responsibility, but maybe I don't know if you get involved in those accident reports and look at them and so on, but it might be.
Central dispatch calls me
Yeah.
first on anything.
And I'm saying after the fact, your traffic engineer, it's always a good thing to maybe look at those fatal reports and see if there's anything that could be done. I don't think in this case, these 3 actually that there would have been. So that's it. That's all I had.
If I may.
Yeah.
Thank you for being an advocate where you're at. You've been here consistently for the last several years, and you really made some things happen in Mayfield Township. And I'll tell you, if you get a chance in the next few years, put your name into the hat for this, for one of these seats. Well, I think you'd do a good job.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Any other member of the public who would wish to make a comment? All right, seeing none, moving on, manager's comment.
And we're move along here nicely. So the summer operations, we did finish off the high ridge removal. We ended up with 200 miles total. So that was really great for our network. And years past, I think getting 20 miles a year. So that was great. Mowing, we're going full force on mowing right now. We got 3 tractors out mowing every day. Got a lot of humidity and rain there for a while, and it really shut out. So we started around the same time of year we always do, but that grass really took off. So they're on the west side right now. I think they said they just finished up at Long Lake area, and they're going to start moving towards the east. So we're be moving on to the states here real shortly. We try to make sure the states are all done for the 4th of July weekend. There's so much traffic on that. Once they finish up those, they will move back out onto the town system. So other than that, staff's doing a great job. It seems like everybody's morale's doing pretty good. So we're unfortunately starting to plan for winter. So
Well, don't say that.
we're always
We didn't even officially started.
yeah, we have officially
Winter.
we're bringing in winter sand this week and starting looking forward on that. So winter planning has begun.
All right, thank you, Dan. Commissioners' comments, questions, and future agenda items that I always start from with our lady commissioner. So,
I just want to thank Dan and Larry. Blair got a little rough this week, and I want to thank you for doing such a great job representing the staff here. It does not go unnoticed, so thank you.
right,
Also not Nicole, she loves you guys. She's a fabulous, fabulous ally of ours.
thank you. That's fine.
The only thing I have is, I hope you guys like the video. And maybe it's not so good. I made a video for the SAD process.
Where is
Oh,
it?
where is it?
Well, I don't know. These guys have to decide whether or not they want to put it
We
up.
gotta get working on getting that released.
Oh, are you editing it?
Oh, I-
You're like Brian.
More like censoring it? It's really, you know? I mean,
It's kind of straightforward and it's kind of.
okay, yeah, we haven't seen it, so.
Yeah, no, it's something we need to get out on this. Maybe get-
Okay,
No, we were focusing a lot of our time trying to get ready for this transman presentation.
Yeah.
so-
yeah, no, this was, yeah.
I've got a couple trees down for that one.
Commissioner Lehman.
I'm gonna go home and read it.
I did want to think about as our staff has completed some of, as the crews are completing these jobs. Are there, I want the manager to brainstorm, and come back to us saying, are there other things to improve the roads that the crew can do, that the crews could do if they had the equipment to do it? This county a few years ago had quite some modern chip sealing equipment that was sold off. And I did see the chip sealers down on Diamond on J. Matty Parkway. Looked like they were doing a pretty nice job, actually. Our contractor, like Derek, we didn't hear anything. Are you guys happy with them or?
Yeah, I'm really happy with what they've done.
They're doing a nice job, but there's things if you want to say to us, you know, our bids aren't good and we can't get this thing done on it. We really need to invest in these cost effective. That there's no way we're going to be able to do the work we want unless we charge our crews with doing it. And if there's things that you want to propose to us, I think we're all ears.
It's really hard making that transition, you know. But I mean, there are road commissions that do have the capability of doing these kind of things for this reason. We're up in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's gonna come bid us, you know, that kind of thing.
Something I have played around with a little bit. I got too far. The biggest issue I see with it is it's gonna take over half our staff to run a chip sealing crew, which means half our crew is not doing the other activities that we do for years. So I know we used to do chip seal here if we had 50 employees. We currently have about 30 employees. So we were able to do the chip seal back then when we had an extra 20 employees. When you start to add in their wages and fringe and all that stuff, I don't know where it balances out.
That's right.
It's something that we'll really look into.
Well, I'm just going to reiterate what we have talked about today. I do want us to keep looking at options, ideas regarding how we can put more money towards our local roads. I think this was a good discussion, but I don't want it to stall. So I would strongly encourage staff to bring proposals for the board's consideration at our future meetings, because we need to do something about our local roads. It is a county-wide issue, so it's not just limited to one or more two townships. And let's see what we can do to improve some of the ratings on some of the local roads and without sacrificing the quality of so I do want us to keep focused on that. Other than that,
Motion to adjourn?
Very
We are adjourned.
My book.